live stream. So glad you're able to join today. I want to make sure that we're not backwards on the image here. So bear with me 1 second. Let me just check that. Like I mentioned last week, there were some changes made to the stream with the software that I use. And it really affected a lot of the things that that used to be normal for the live stream, the functionality I'm talking about. So we'll get it figured out. Just check a couple things here. Okay, so it's flipping our image. Let me flip that back then. All right.
Melanie Lynn Elkins. Yes, looks backwards.
Hey, Melanie, thanks for joining today. All right. We'll get this flipped over the right way here. Okay, I think we are good. And I'll get mine flipped over. There we go. All right. Okay, there we go. It should be right. All right, thanks, Melanie. So Melanie is over on Facebook. So if you're joining us, reach out and interact with us this morning. So funny thing, early on during 2020, back in March, I didn't know anybody who had the coronavirus, and then it happened that I started knowing more and more people that had the coronavirus, and then some tragic stories of people that we even knew, some who have passed away. It's very tragic and sad. Anyway, long story short, my daughter was tested positive with the virus. My youngest, that was, I believe, Tuesday, started showing symptoms Monday. Anyway, so we all started showing symptoms in my house. So I got tested. I don't have the results back yet, but I'm pretty sure that I have the virus, had the virus. I feel good now, but it wasn't so good first few days, I should say. And there's headaches on and off that I'm dealing with. Yeah, it's just I started just resolving myself to the fact that we're all going to get it at some point, right? So I replaced my AFMAT sharpener with a new AFMAT sharpener, and this one is just the same one. It's just black is all, and it's quieter. I've noticed a lot quieter than the old model, which is good. The reason I replaced it is because the old one just started breaking pencils more and more. That blade wears out over time, and they're not expensive. I had it, I don't know, a couple of years, I guess, something like that, 30-something bucks. So you should replace your sharpener once in a while. and I probably waited too long. I should probably replace it 6 months to a year, something like that. I wish that it had a replaceable helical blade inside. There is a helical blade inside. A lot of times, the pencil companies, they'll say something about how that you can replace the blade, but then they won't ever make a blade available to replace it. So it's kind of crazy. Also fixed my problem with the live stream. After a lot of research, I did some updates to the little board that is inside the CamLink device that I was using. I bought 2 other devices, converters, to get that codec to work correctly. And I just didn't like the performance of the other 2 that I purchased. So I went back to the one that was giving me problems and freezing up, and I started doing updates on it. And I think I got it fixed. So we'll find out today. I've tested it a lot since then. So we're going to get back to this image. And what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to look for areas that are my darkest values. And as I do that, and I put these pencil marks down, these layers down, I'm also going to make minor corrections to my line drawing. So I'm looking at, if you're looking at the reference here on screen, this dark corner over here on the outer edge of the eye. And it should be moved up just a little bit from what I had. So I'm doing that as I'm filling in that dark value. And now I'm also noticing that this edge for the iris, in my opinion, needs to be moved just a little bit over here. So, hey, Harry, good morning. How are you? Lisa, good morning, or Lise, I guess it is. Good morning. How are you? Good to see you guys out here. So with this one on this edge over here, I'll move it a little bit by restating some lines. And then I'll come back in here with an eraser. And since I'm on a board, it can erase just about everything to a certain extent, especially early on. And I use a light touch, so it'll erase quite a bit. You're not going to be able to do that on a lot of other papers, but if you're using a board, the Strathmore 500 series board also works well with being able to erase this much. You're not going to be able to lay down quite as many layers as you would, say, on Stonehenge paper, but that's, that's the way it goes. Those are some of the concessions you make when you choose a paper surface, right? Okay. There are trade-offs. There are pros and cons to every paper. There is no perfect paper. You're not going to find one paper that you're just going to be like, oh, this is the perfect paper. To a certain degree, you're always going to be making some decisions and modifying some techniques based on the paper that you're using. Now, there are some papers that you're going to love more, and it's going to get along better with you using certain types of papers than others. And so that's the reason why I always encourage exploring, just trying different papers and seeing which one you like the best. One artist may say, oh, this particular paper is the best. And you try it and you're just not going to like it at all. So try different papers and see which one is going to suit you the best. I want to make sure. Let me look at my audio really quick. I figured out a way, and oh, Stephanie is on here. Hey, Stephanie, how are you? I figured out a way to eliminate any kind of hiss in the audio. Oh, here it is. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, there it is. We are good to go. Just want to make sure I had that activated, and I do. So, good deal. Okay, let me go up here. So I don't have to get rid of all of these blue lines that I have on here. I can do that if I want to, but I don't necessarily have to do that. Thanks, Stephanie. Well, Harry, it is snowing here, and there is snow on the ground. So it's going to go out and get some winter pictures, some snow pictures this morning. And I still may do that if I can find. There's a particular spot that I want to go to that would probably give me some pretty good landscape pictures that I'm looking for. I may do that when I'm off this live stream this morning. Go over there, take a look. Although it's really cloudy today, so I was hoping that we'd get a little more sun, but we're not going to. Sometimes that can still work if the composition's really strong or something, if you're looking for something else. But generally speaking, I want to have some sun available, even if it's an overcast with a little bit of light available. But if it's just too much clouds and just way too cloudy, then it can just create a washed out kind of look. And you can try to work with that and try to make it different, and impose a light source whenever you're working on your piece, but you're going to be fighting an uphill battle the entire time. You're going to be trying to invent things the entire time. I don't know. I've thought about doing that, but it can be done, right? Erase a little bit here. I think I need my Tombow Mono. Get that a little tighter. There's a little ridge right up here above the eyelashes. It's a little bit lighter, so I don't want it to look blue. So I want to get rid of that. Okay. Some of those erasures that are left on the paper are a little stubborn, and you can use your kneaded eraser to just pick those up. It works really well. Okay. Oh, okay. So Stephanie's asking what this red thing is. This is an air rocket, I believe it's called. So I've had this for over 10 years, I believe. It expels air. So it pulls in air from the back and it shoots it out this end right here. It's designed for camera lenses, but it works really well for your drawing. And I like it a lot better than using like a brush, although I will use a brush if I need to, but a brush or a Swiffer duster or you know, the list can go on and on of things you could use. The reason I don't use those most of the time is it can knock some of your pencil into other parts of your drawing. Where with this, you can control the amount of that blowing force. Yeah, it works really well. Okay, now I want to look at those negative spaces. That's a big key to drawing accurately, is to look for the negative space in some of the abstract images or little areas of the features. So what I mean by that is this is an interval right here between this ridge of the opening for the eyelid and where this top crease is. I think you can see that in the reference right there. So let me make this just a little bit larger so you can see it better. Now my image is probably backwards. Let me flip that around here. There we go. Okay, so here's an interval. This little line or edge right here and this edge right here. So it's shorter, or there's less distance between these lines or edges right here than there is up here, right? And then I want to think then about this shape, this little abstract shape in between here. That tells me something about where this crease is, this edge up here in the upper crease of the eyelid. And it also tells me where this edge right here is for the eyelash line, right? Same thing is true then down below, right in here, where we're looking at that inside edge of the eyelid. I want to look at these intervals right in here. So I'm thinking about this overall shape. This is part of the sclera, right? But when I look at that overall shape, this little concaved area, this area that is notched out right here for the tear duct, all the way up here and the way it curves, then that is a negative space. And so I'm blocking out my mind, not thinking about all these other areas. I'm thinking about just that area. So when I do that, all of a sudden, then these edges that I'm working on over here everywhere else are going to start making more sense, are going to line up more correctly when I'm focusing on that. Hope that made sense. Okay. So I want to sort of look at that little ring around this this concaved area that makes up the inner edge of the eyelids, because there is a thicker part to the skin, And I'm thinking about all these, the contours of the way that this feature is shaped. So this skin moves up, and then it has an abrupt edge right up here. And so I want to think about that when I'm depicting where that opening for the eye is. Oh, okay. I know what happened here. Thanks, Melanie. So if I go back over here, well, we'll just change it over here. So the reference is right. Oh, yeah, okay. There we go. That is so annoying. I got to get that setting figured out where I don't have to change it. Okay. I'm still looking for the darkest recessed areas, the darkest shadows. Thanks, Melanie. Appreciate that. Okay. The other thing I want to notice is that this edge under here, that's a form edge to the eyelid, it starts over here somewhere and it moves all the way over to the outer corner, but it's darker, much darker in value over here than it is over here. So I want to maintain that value structure as I'm looking for the darkest areas on this first layer that I'm putting down. Now I want to be careful not to press too hard when you use light pressure, because I want more layers on top. That's the reason. So I want to maintain a sharp point on my pencil. It needs sharpened actually. And I want to use light pressure that I apply to that tip. Keep it at the pencil at more of a 45-degree angle to the paper. There we go. And there's a couple of smaller wrinkles that we can see underneath the eye right under here, and with this skin as it moves in this dark area up to the lighter area, getting close to the bottom eyelashes. And so we want to notice those couple of wrinkles there and sort of allow for them a little bit by creating a little bit of a slightly darker area right there that we can come back to later. I'm using burnt sienna right now in luminance. Remember last week we figured out some of our colors, and these were really predominantly the colors that I want to go with right here. Now I can use other colors later on, but I'm going to kind of start out with those right now. So that's apricot, or apricot if you prefer, in the Derwent Lightfast, burnt sienna, and or caput mortem. They're very, very similar. If I used the caput mortem here in this area, I don't think that you could really tell much of a difference in this caput mortem pencil color and my in Polychromos and my burnt sienna in luminance. Very, very similar. Nearly identical in value for sure, but in color they're also really similar. Okay. Some areas right up here that I could erase. So how many of you guys are drawing along with me and have decided to draw this? I know some of you may even be drawing the entire portrait of Evan. So if you are, I would love to know that you're doing that. It's exciting. Get rid of a little bit more of that blue. Ah, okay, Melanie. Yeah. So, Melanie, are you drawing the eye itself, or are you going to also draw the entire portrait? Or do you know yet? I need to move this down a little bit right in here. There we go. Okay. Awesome. So Melanie's over on Facebook. She says she's probably going to draw the entire portrait. That is so cool. Yeah, it's a really striking pose, I think. I feel like, I don't know, there's something just captured in that expression of his that looks really good. And I love it that he's looking directly at the lens, at the viewer by the time you're done with your piece. You know, that'll be really cool. Okay. Now, I'm loving this coffee this morning. I had just a little bit of this particular, it's flavored coffee. It's black coffee, but it's got a little accent flavor in it of Highlander grog is what it is. And it's just one of my favorites. I don't have it very often. There's a small little boutique coffee shop not far from here, and that's where that came from. So I put that in the French press this morning, and oh man, it's so good. Okay, so there's a shadow. Let's see here. So this shadow comes down here, goes all the way down here, moves back up just a little bit, and then it comes over this way. It's a little darker right in here, and then that little shelf right in there. Okay. This goes all the way out here. All right. So Harry said he tried, he's over on Facebook, he said he tried a portrait with lighter skin tones, but found the Pro Color better on lighter colors. The new Luminance portrait set also seemed to be shy of light skin tones, pinkish ones. Huh. I got to be honest, I never use those Pro Color pencils because every time I get them out, I'm just like, okay, which ones are light fast, which ones aren't? And I mean, they're just not my favorite pencils either, but very cool, Harry. If you're loving those pencils and you're finding a way to make them work for you, that's awesome. So I love, I'm nearly the opposite of Harry in my opinion, because I love the new Luminance pencils a lot, and I love that pink white new pencil that they have in there as well. But yeah, every pencil line, I don't really know of a pencil line that has great pink colors. They're just, apparently that's just a very difficult color to create in a light fast version, to make it light fast. So I usually have to layer with reds and lighter colors to create my pinks, which I'm fine with that as long as what I'm creating is light fast. Okay. I think the last time I was teaching in person, I think I asked students if they had children or grandkids that they let color with colored pencils, and if they did, if they wanted the Pro Color pencils that I had, and the ones that weren't light fast, I just, I donated those. So I don't know that I have any now, actually, now that I've thought about this, that are not light fast anymore. I think I've donated them all. They do have some bright colors in that Pro Color set, though. That's for sure. Hey, Oksana, how are you? Nice nice of you to join us. All right. So, Oksana, we were just talking about Pro Color colored pencils and the Derwent or the new Luminance portrait set of pencils. Do you like either of those pencils? I'm probably going to use some of the new Luminance pencils on this drawing. I'm sure I probably will be. I really like that red, Herculeum red pencil. That one's number 068 in the new Luminance pencils. That one is so nice. And just such a great skin color. So Melanie, you love those new Luminance. I figured you did, and you don't have the Pro Color. Yeah, there's just not a, for me, Harry likes them. That's fine. There's just not a whole lot of reason for getting those Pro Color ones. Hey, Peggy, good morning. So Oksana, you like those luminants as well. Cool. Yeah. They're just so good. Yeah, so Stephanie, that's an interesting question. Yeah, so this is a Polychromos pencil. Yeah, they're not close to oil painting really at all. They are a bit, so they're known as oil based, if you want to refer to them as that, but they are kind of powdery actually on certain non-absorbent surfaces. You do get good coverage with them. But yeah, I love them. I use them quite often, especially on a non-absorbent surface. I like those. Yeah, I do the same thing, Oksana, mixing pencil brands. I love to do that. Ah, Harry, that makes sense. Harry draws, sounds like strictly for pleasure and not for, he doesn't worry about light fastness. So cool. Okay. Well, this shadow down here is, you know, if we think about just the value of this shadow right in here, it is nearly equal to the value of the eyebrow right up above it right here. So I want to make sure that I remember that you know, I don't get too far away from that value structure as I start adding more detail. I don't want to make that eyebrow so dark, and it doesn't look like it too much, I notice on that reference right there. But if I look at the printed off copy that I'm using, to me, this value right in here is very similar to that value. So, you know, if you're looking at a digital representation of a reference and then you compare that to your printed copy, you know, it depends, you know, on the printer and the settings, and the list goes on why there's differences, but there are often differences. I love these larger studies that you can do with certain facial features, because it really just kind of hones in on what's important and forces you to make decisions in areas that are, you know, they're very, very tiny, really, when you're drawing maybe at 80% of what a face actually, the actual size would be. But with this, and you've zoomed in and you've cropped it very, very close, then it changes everything, and your attention is quite different as well. I do have a deeper dive training that will be coming up in later this week, starting on Thursday. I've got 3 different sessions to choose from. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to grab a link here. I'll put it in the chat for you guys if you want to be a part of that. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Oksana. Well, we will see you then this weekend during that live training. So I put it in the chat there for anyone that's interested. All right. But we're going to be discussing drawing the eyes. We're going to really be focusing in on drawing the eyes and talking all about what is important, what isn't important, what you should consider and think about when you're drawing the eyes. Okay. Like, for instance, we're going to be talking about how to draw the cornea. Well, the cornea is invisible, but how do you allow for the cornea? And thinking about what the cornea does and how it magnifies certain areas, it's an important thing to keep in the forefront of your mind when you're drawing that part of the eye. No, they're all the same. Yeah, good question, Oksana. They're all going to be the same. So, okay. So this value over here on the left side, the left edge, we're in the shadow over here. So we're going to have very, very dark values on this side. So I want to make sure that I get enough of this darker pencil layer in here. Great. Sounds good, Oksana. We will see you then. Okay. So this is where, the study of anatomy really helps us. If we study anatomy at all and we start to understand the whole structure of this orbital area of the face, then some of these little concaved areas, some of the darker recessed areas, as well as some of the highlights that we see are going to make more sense. Now, you can draw things even without knowing the subject matter intimately, right? If you just follow the values that you're looking at and you kind of copy the values that you see in your reference. But I think that you're missing just a little something if you take it a step beyond that and you start to intimately know the subject that you draw most or that you paint most. Then you go beyond drawing what you know and drawing what you see, but you're doing both. You're drawing what you both know and see. And so you can manipulate your particular art piece and make it just, a little better than the reference that you're looking at. Maybe a little more lifelike. There's just something else that you can add to the piece when you're very, very familiar with that subject matter. And I believe that it's very difficult to do that if you don't study the subject matter that you are most often drawing. So Jason says, do you have a preferred or favorite paper for your colored pencil drawings? I have several preferences, I guess, Jason, would be the best way to answer that. And those are Stonehenge paper. I like that one, but I also like sanded paper. I like Pastel Map by Clairefontaine. There's just a lot of different papers that I enjoy working on, but those are some of my favorites right there. Okay. Let's see if we can work on that iris right here just a little bit more. And we'll leave the skin around the eye alone for a little bit here. So I want to do the same thing. I want to think about where the shadows are. And I also want to think about the darkest areas as well, because that doesn't mean that it's always a shadow that we're depicting if it's dark. It could just mean that the value of a particular hue is darker. And so I want to think about where those areas are in this particular drawing. Now I want some variation in that iris. So Oksana, she's asking what color I'm using. I'm using burnt sienna bioluminescence. Now, when I'm depicting the iris right in here, the iris and the pupil and the sclera, this is a case in point here, and we're talking about knowing the anatomy a little bit. Now, I don't know the anatomy of the eyeball itself like an eye doctor would, and I don't need to draw this eye, right? But it is helpful to know certain things like this outer ring, different things about that outer ring, to know also that there is some variation in the value inside the iris right in here, and to think of this like spokes on a bicycle, and to add some darker lines here and there. And then if there's a highlight right here, like we're seeing, then on the opposite side of that highlight, we're going to have another area right here that is going to be lighter because it's passing through that cornea and it's hitting the opposite side of the iris. And when it does that, it illuminates this area, this diagonal right here. So we think about that diagonal as the light travels and it hits this spot right here, goes to the other side, it brightens this up right here. So therefore, it's going to be a little darker right here next to the pupil. It's going to be darker right around the highlight next to where that highlight is, or that at least helps me to create something that's convincing when I do that. And then on this opposite side, I need the value around that area to be a little bit darker so that this area does look lighter. Oh, Jan is out here. Jan, you did a fantastic job on the eye. Jan's already done with the eye, and it is gorgeous. So nice. She did such a good job with it. I don't know why you're redoing your eye, Jan. It looks incredible. It really does. Okay. That outer ring over here, though, is going to be really dark. Really dark. And it wraps all the way around the eye. The more that I work on that outer ring, then I need to make sure that that pupil stays in the center of this entire area that makes up the iris. Okay. So if I look at that eye, I don't have to include every little thing that I see in that reference. I can include things and exclude details as I see fit to depict something that both looks aesthetically pleasing to the viewer. The viewer is me primarily when I'm drawing it, right? And then I can, I can decide what to leave in and what to leave out to enhance what I feel like is important to make something look nice, look pleasing, look like a piece of art. Okay. Now, if I also think about the way that the light is traveling, this light is coming from this direction a little bit, but it's also coming directly into the subject. But I've also got a light source, or the way that the light is affecting this form is from up above as well. So I have light, and I know that because of some of these areas where there's a crease, and then I've got a dark area right below that. So same thing's going to happen then with the iris, with this area of the eye. It's going to be darker right up here because that top eyelid is very thick and it's shading the iris right there. And when I look at that reference, I can hardly see where the top of the pupil is. Why? Because all of those values are very, very dark up there. Okay. Now I put down about as much as I want right there for right now. And I can remove some of that later on if I want to. So I don't have to put some of those other reflections in the eye if I don't want to. It's an option, but I don't have to do that, right? Now, because of the way that light travels, I can put a little bit of a shadow right up here to depict that upper eyelid shading, the sclera. I'm doing the same thing over here only because of the tear duct, and this skin inside the eye is very, very pink, but it's also darker in value. So I can put some of that in here right now because I'm thinking primarily about the value, right? And up in here, this is a little bit darker as well, so I'll shade that just a little bit. Okay. Let me keep looking a little bit here all the way around. I don't have to put these bottom eyelashes in yet, nor am I concerned with the top eyelashes yet. That will come later on. This area of the sclera over here on this side can be quite a bit darker now that I have more value everywhere else. And I can put a little bit of shading down here on the sclera just to show that this is a three-dimensional object. It's curved. It's not flat. I've got too dark right there. That's okay for right now. I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm going to darken this area up just a little bit more. I think I'll leave the iris alone for a little bit. Don't need to worry about it right now, because if I have a little bit of the value structure set and ready for color, then I'm going to be drawing more with color once I start adding more of the local color and the hues that I see in the eyeball itself. I want to back that up just a little bit right in here. Okay. Now I could start adding some of that red in here. Let me look at this. Might need a little more value right in here. Maybe right here. I want to obliterate this this little edge that I created. I don't want there to be some kind of edge there that really isn't there. Jan. So she's asking what paper I'm working on. So I'm working on an illustration board, or well, it's not illustration board. It is it's a mixed media. It's a crescent board, mixed media. I believe that one's heavyweight, medium weight, or heavyweight. And but it is a matte board, is what it is. So same kind of material that you would use in matting your piece and framing it. It's archival material, and it's very thick. It creates a really nice surface to draw on also. Yeah, you're welcome, Jan. Good question. I don't think anyone asked that today. I think we did talk about it, though, last week. A little bit. Okay. So this area right here is nearly as dark, if not as dark, as this area right over here. Although, when we get close to the edge, then I'm finishing my composition over here. My purpose for drawing this eye is to present a study of the eye. So I may choose to not make this area real dark out here, because I'm focusing in on what's important for this composition in depicting this eye. You may choose to do that. I may choose to do that too. I just don't know yet. But I'm thinking about that, and I'm considering what I may do in that area. So it seems like our stream is working just fine today. So I'm glad about that. Looks like I fixed that problem then with that capture card that I was having last week. You know, the tech can be a blessing and a curse. If it's working, it's a blessing. If it isn't working, it's quite the curse, right? Now, when you're working on certain papers, like Stonehenge would be one in particular. Hey, Angel, how are you? Good to see you out here. But when you're working on Stonehenge or some surface that is very sensitive, then I think it's important to make your strokes in one direction. Lay it down in one direction to protect your tooth if you need multiple layers. When you're working on a board like this, that will take quite a few layers more. Well, it won't take quite a few layers. That's not true. It's more sturdy, though. It has a more sturdy surface. It's not a delicate tooth. And I can scrub on it with an eraser and get it back to white. Like I could do that right here and get it back to white. Then I can go back and forth and scrub like that. And I'm not going to mess anything up when I do that. And I just use this eraser, I can get this back to white. I may have to go over it a couple of times with different erasers, but I can get that back, and the tooth is still there, and I can still go over the top of that with a different color, and it won't affect anything. Now, if I try to do that on certain papers that have a very delicate tooth, you know, Stonehenge maybe isn't a fair comparison because it does have a pretty sturdy tooth, but there are other papers that you could be drawing on that won't allow you to erase and then go back over that area and change and modify what's on that surface. Do want that to be a little bit darker over here. I can fade that out. Same way up here. This is all in shadow. Entire area. Then I've got more shadows over here on this side. I just got a darker, deeper shadow over here than I do over on this this area that is actually a form edge where I'm getting close to the side plane of the face. Right here, there's a steep curve down into this orbital cavity. And the darker that I depict this area right here, the steeper that is going to appear. And the more concaved that area will appear, right? So if I'm concerned at all with depicting this person, with the way this person looks, then I want to think about that and consider that and make that darker in that area. This is a fun area right here as well because the skin changes in texture right in there. And you'll often see little micro wrinkles on younger individuals. Now, on people my age and older, you're going to see there's nothing micro about the wrinkles. You're going to see more wrinkles in that area. And so we want to show that. We don't want to act like they don't exist. We want to be able to show. You sharpen this again. About to wear this pencil down. Okay, this eyelid right here, I want to pay attention to what's happening and not just make this dark without any definition. But what's happening is the contour of this area is moving down into this area, this orbital area that is bordered by the edge to the skull right in here. And then it starts to jet out again and form the upper part of the cheek. So right in here, it's going to be darker as it presses down into the presses down into this area where there's just tissue and no bone, right? So I don't want to forget that. I want this all to just be one value over here. Okay. It's about as dark as I want to go, though, because I'm going to run out of tooth if I go a lot darker. And I want to get color in there eventually. I want color to go on top of this. And I'll limit my options if I go too dark in that area. Okay. I'll come back over here. Make sure that I'm still creating part of that darker value around the lower part of the eyelid. And if you're having trouble seeing the value of what you're putting down and in the reference, then just squint your eyes when you're looking at the reference, and it sometimes will help to not see the details and not see the color as much. You're only looking at the light and the dark of the area that you're trying to draw. Okay, let's take a look. Okay. Not going to worry about that eyebrow right now. That will be something I'll be concerned with later on. Get that part of that inner corner here where that inside edge of the eyelid is. Now I can complete this outer ring if I want to, just so I can tell where that is. I can remove it later on if I want to. All right. Okay. I think that's as far as I'll go today with what we're doing. I did want to start adding red, but I think we'll save that for next time. So I consider this a red anyway that I'm using. It's a dark red, burnt sienna, and it's dark enough though to just depict everything and get it where I need it right now as far as values are concerned. And then later on, we'll worry about color on top of that. So, thanks, Oksana. Appreciate it. So hope you guys enjoyed that. And we will pick it up next week on Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern time, both streaming on YouTube and Facebook. And so we'll start adding color next time. And I can't wait for that. Thanks, Angel. Good to see you out here. Angel's, she has been with Sharpened Artists, the brand, for since I began. So it's exciting every time we have someone who has been around that long. And I know there's many others of you, Melanie as well. So, all right. Thanks, Jan. Thanks, Melanie. Thanks for coming out, guys. And we'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.